Michael Torres pressed the cold steel of the foreclosure notice against his chest, his hands shaking. $47 left. 3 days until strangers came to lock the doors his late wife had painted yellow because she said it meant hope. His 8-year-old daughter Emma slept 20 feet away, still believing Daddy could fix anything, like Mommy used to say before cancer took her. Then 20 motorcycles roared up his mountain in a blizzard. Their leader removed her helmet. Gray eyes met his. "We need shelter, please." What happened next would prove that sometimes miracles wear leather jackets. Comment below what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Michael Torres stood behind the bar of Mountain Haven Inn, counting money he'd already counted twice. The bills lay flat under his calloused fingers, 2 20s of 5 2-1s. $47. Not 48, not 50. 47. He counted again anyway. "Daddy!" Michael's head snapped up. Emma stood in the hallway doorway, dragging her mother's old quilt behind her. Her chestnut hair stuck up in sleep tangles, and her brown eyes. Sarah's eyes watched him with that careful look children get when they know something's wrong, but don't understand what. "Hey, sweetheart." Michael forced his voice to stay level. "Bad dream." "You're doing the counting thing again." Emma climbed onto a bar stool, wrapping the quilt around her shoulders. "You always count when you're worried." "I'm not. Mommy used to say you counted things when your brain was too loud." Emma tilted her head. "Is your brain loud tonight?" Michael's throat tightened. 3 years since Sarah had died, and Emma still quoted her like she'd just left the room. He moved around the bar and lifted his daughter onto his lap, quilt and all. "Yeah, baby. My brain's a little loud." "How loud? Like thunder loud, or just rain loud?" "Somewhere in between." Emma nodded seriously, like this made perfect sense. She picked up one of the $20 bills and smoothed it with small fingers. "Is this enough money?" "Enough for what?" "For whatever you're worried about." Michael looked at his daughter's upturned face and felt something crack in his chest. "Not quite enough, Em. But we're working on it. I have $6 in my piggy bank, from my birthday. Would that help?" He pulled her closer, pressing his face into her hair. She smelled like the lavender soap Sarah used to make the last batch sitting under the bathroom sink, because he couldn't bring himself to use it up. "You keep your birthday money. Daddy's got this." "That's what you said last time." "This time's different." "That's what you said last time, too." Michael almost smiled. "When'd you get so smart?" "Mommy said I was born smart. She said I got your stubborn and her brains, which means I'm double trouble." Emma yawned against his chest. "Are we really gonna lose the inn?" The question hit like a physical blow. Michael had tried so hard to shield her from this, to handle it alone, like he'd handled everything since Sarah died. But kids knew. They always knew. "I don't know, baby. I'm trying really hard to make sure we don't." "If we lose the inn, where will we go?" "Somewhere. Don't worry about that." "Will I have to change schools?" "Emma." "Because Jenny Miller's my best friend, and I don't want to leave her. And Mrs. Patterson is teaching us about butterflies next month, and I really want to learn about butterflies, because Mommy loved butterflies, remember? She had that tattoo on her shoulder." "M." Michael held her tighter. "We're not there yet, okay? We've still got time." "How much time?" 3 days. The foreclosure notice gave him 3 days. "Enough time," he said instead. Emma seemed satisfied with this non-answer. She snuggled deeper into the quilt, her breathing starting to slow. Michael sat in the dim bar holding his daughter, staring at $47 that might as well have been 47 cents for all the good it would do. The Mountain Haven Inn had been Sarah's dream as much as his. After 2 tours in Afghanistan, after seeing things he still couldn't talk about, Michael had needed something permanent to build, something that lasted. Sarah had understood that better than anyone. "You spent 8 years protecting strangers in a desert," she'd said, her hand on his chest, feeling the Marine Corps tattoo over his heart. Now you can protect people here. Give them a safe place. That's still service, Michael. Just a different kind. They'd bought the failing inn with his military savings and her inheritance from her grandmother. Spent 2 years renovating it themselves, Sarah painting while pregnant with Emma Michael, reinforcing the foundation while she napped. They'd opened to small crowds at first, then bigger ones. Hunters in fall, skiers in winter, summer tourists wanting to escape Denver's heat. For 5 years they'd made it work. Then Sarah got sick. Stage 4 breast cancer, the doctor had said, like those words were just facts and not a death sentence. 18 months of treatments. Experimental drugs their insurance wouldn't cover. Michael working the inn alone while Sarah fought in hospital rooms. Emma learning to be quiet because mommy needed rest. Sarah died on a Tuesday morning in March with snow falling outside, and Emma reading her a story about a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. "Take care of our girl," Sarah had whispered, her hand in his. "And don't let the inn die with me. Promise me, Michael." He'd promised. But keeping that promise meant drowning in medical debt. Meant choosing between fixing the roof and paying the mortgage. Meant watching their savings, everything they'd built, disappear into the hole Sarah's illness had created. Now Summit Ridge Corporation circled like vultures their developer, Derek Hastings, calling weekly with offers that got lower each time. "You can't keep this place running alone," Derek always said, his voice smooth with false concern. "Be realistic, Michael. Sell while you can still get something for it." Michael would rather burn the place down. His phone buzzed on the bar. A text from Derek. "Thinking about our conversation. Clock's ticking. Let's talk tomorrow." Michael deleted it without responding. Emma had fallen asleep in his arms, her weight warm and trusting. He carried her back to her room, tucking her under the quilt Sarah had made, the one with yellow stars that had faded with washing, but still held the faint scent of his wife's perfume. "I'm trying, Sarah," he whispered to the darkness. "I'm trying so damn hard." Back in the main room, Michael poured himself cheap whiskey and stood at the window. 11:47. The wind outside had picked up, rattling the old window frames. Snow fell in thick sheets, obscuring the pine trees and the mountain road beyond. Nobody would drive up here tonight, not in this weather. He was about to turn away when he heard it. At first he thought it was the wind changing pitch, but the sound was too mechanical, too rhythmic. Engines. Multiple engines, their rumble cutting through the storm's howl. Michael pressed closer to the glass, squinting through the snow. Lights appeared in the distance. Not car headlights, these sat lower, moving in formation. 1 set, 2, 5, 10, 20 headlights pierced the blizzard, growing steadily brighter. Michael's military training kicked in automatically. Assess, secure, adapt. He checked the shotgun under the bar, not to use, just to know it was there. Confirmed Emma's door was closed. Positioned himself where he could see the entrance and the hallway. The engines grew louder, closer. Through the snow shapes materialized motorcycles, their riders hunched against the wind, moving in tight formation, like a military convoy. Nobody rode motorcycles in a blizzard. Not unless they had no choice. Or unless they were running from something. The lead bike pulled up close to the entrance, its rider dismounted, movements efficient despite the storm. Tall, broad-shouldered black jacket covered in snow. The rider pulled off their helmet, and long dark hair spilled out silver streaks, catching the porch light. A woman. Michael watched as she turned and gestured to the others. One by one, 20 riders dismounted. All women. All moving with the same coordinated efficiency. All wearing black leather vests with patches he couldn't quite read through the snow. The lead woman walked toward the door. Michael moved to meet her, one hand on the lock, the other hovering near the shotgun he hoped he wouldn't need. She knocked. 3 sharp raps. "Is anyone inside?" Her voice carried clearly despite the wind, commanding but not aggressive. "We need shelter, 20 of us. Roads are closed behind us." Michael hesitated. 20 strangers. $47. Emma sleeping down the hall. The woman knocked again. Please, we've been riding for 6 hours. We have hypothermia cases. Women who need warmth and somewhere safe. Something in her tone decided him. Michael unlocked the door. The wind hit like a fist driving snow into the bar, scattering his carefully counted bills across the floor. The woman stepped inside, and Michael got his first clear look at her. Mid-40s maybe. Gray eyes sharp as winter steel. A scar along her left jawline. Tattoos on her hands, not prison ink, something more deliberate. She held his gaze steadily, neither aggressive nor apologetic. Thank you. She extended her hand. Victoria Cameron. Most people call me Vic. We're Iron Sisters Motorcycle Club. We were heading to Wyoming when the storm hit. Roads iced over behind us. We need somewhere to wait it out. Michael shook her hand, firm grip calluses that spoke of hard work. Michael Torres, you picked a hell of a night to ride. We didn't pick it. Storm moved faster than the weather service predicted. Vic glanced back at her crew still waiting in the snow. We can pay, whatever your rates are. Don't worry about rates right now. Get your people inside before they freeze. Vic turned and made a sharp hand gesture. Immediately, the other women began moving toward the entrance, their coordination suggesting this wasn't their first crisis. They filed in one by one, stamping snow from their boots, pulling off helmets and gloves. Michael caught glimpses of their vests as they passed Iron Sisters MC in bold letters, with smaller patches indicating chapters from different states. Kill your engines, Michael said, his voice carrying that command tone he'd learned in the Marines. Carbon monoxide's nobody's friend in an enclosed space. The women responded immediately, heading back out to secure their bikes. No arguments, no questions, just obedience to a clear order. Michael noted this. Not random bikers looking for trouble, an organized group with discipline. Vic remained near the door, watching her people, with that same sharp assessment. We'll stay out of your way. Just need heat and somewhere to sleep until the road's clear. How long do you think that'll be? Weather service says storm breaks tomorrow afternoon. Plows might reach this elevation by tomorrow night. She met his eyes. That's optimistic. Realistically, 2 days, maybe 3. 2 days. 3 days. $47 stretched across 21 people. Vic must have seen something in his face, because her expression softened slightly. We have some supplies. Food, coffee. We're not asking for charity. I'm not worried about charity. I'm worried about heating this place for 3 days with a generator that's already struggling. Some of our members are mechanics, engineers. We can help with whatever needs fixing. The offer was tempting. Michael had been nursing the generator along for months, unable to afford proper repairs. Let's get your people warm first. We'll figure out the rest after. The last of the Iron Sisters came inside, and Michael bolted the door against the storm. The bar had transformed in minutes from his solitary space to a crowded refuge. 20 women in various states of cold exhaustion, peeling off wet layers, trying to get feeling back in frozen fingers and toes. One woman older than the rest with silver hair in a long braid knelt by the wood stove, coaxing the fire higher. Another young, maybe mid-20s with blue streaks in her blonde hair, pulled out her phone, checking for signal and finding none. Cell towers are probably iced, the young woman said. We're cut off until the storm passes. Vic moved through her people with quiet efficiency, checking each one for injuries or frostbite. Michael recognized the assessment. He'd done the same thing with his squad after patrols in hostile territory. You were military, Vic said, not quite a question. Michael looked at her sharply. What makes you say that? The way you positioned yourself when you opened the door. Back to the wall, clear sight lines to exits and the hallway. The way you gave orders about the bikes, direct, no wasted words, expecting obedience. She smiled slightly. My father was a Marine. I know the signs. Was killed in Afghanistan, 2011, second tour. I'm sorry. Me too. Vic looked away, but not before Michael caught the old grief in her eyes. He taught me everything worth knowing: how to lead, how to assess risk, how to trust your instincts about people. She looked back at Michael. My instincts say you're good people, Michael Torres. Before he could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. Daddy! Every head turned. Emma stood there in her nightgown and quilt eyes huge, staring at 20 leather-clad strangers in her living room. Michael moved quickly, crossing to her and kneeling. It's okay, baby. These ladies got caught in the storm. They just need somewhere warm for a little while. Emma's gaze swept the room, taking in the motorcycles through the window. The tough-looking women, the general chaos. Her chin started to tremble. The silver-haired woman stood and approached, slowly moving with grandmother-like gentleness. Hi there, sweetheart. I'm Ruth. She knelt to Emma's level, keeping her distance, not crowding. I know we look scary with all our leather and boots, but I promise we're just cold and tired, and really glad your daddy let us in from that awful storm. Emma clutched her quilt tighter. Are you bad guys? No, honey. We're actually good guys who ride motorcycles instead of horses, like cowboys but with better bikes. Ruth smiled. I have a granddaughter about your age. Her name's Sophie. She has a quilt just like yours. Did someone special make that for you? My mommy, before she died. The room went quiet. Ruth's expression softened further. Then that's a very precious quilt, and I bet your mommy was a very special lady. Emma nodded. She was the best mommy in the whole world. I believe that, because she made you, and you seem pretty special too. Emma considered this. Then, in the way children do, she made up her mind. She walked over to Ruth and held out her hand. I'm Emma Marie Torres. I'm 8 years old. Do you want to see my room? Ruth took her hand carefully. I'd be honored, Emma Marie Torres. Michael watched his daughter lead Ruth down the hallway, chattering about her butterfly collection and the picture she was drawing for her teacher. Something tight in his chest loosened slightly. Vic came to stand beside him. Ruth's our den mother, retired school principal. She's got a gift with kids. Your father would be proud of the organization you've built. How do you know I built it? The way they look at you, the way they responded when you gave orders. That's not respect for a title. That's respect earned. Michael turned to face her fully. How long have the Iron Sisters been riding? 8 years. Started with 5 women. Now we're 300 strong across 12 states. Vic pulled off her jacket, revealing a long-sleeved shirt underneath. We do charity runs mostly. Raise money for women's shelters, veteran causes. Sometimes we help women escape dangerous situations, provide safe transport, temporary housing through our network. That's good work. It's necessary work. Vic hung her jacket on a hook by the door. Your wife, how long has she been gone? The question should have felt intrusive. Instead, it felt like someone finally acknowledging the elephant that lived in every corner of his life. 3 years. Cancer. And you've been running this place alone since then. Emma helps when she can. Emma's 8. She's mature for her age. Vic studied him for a long moment. You don't have to do everything alone, Michael. I'm not alone. I have Emma. That's not what I meant. Michael knew what she meant. But accepting help required trust he'd lost somewhere between Sarah's diagnosis and her funeral. I should check what food we have, he said, changing the subject. 22 people need breakfast in the morning. 21. I skip breakfast. You'll eat with everyone else. Can't have the leader falling over from hunger. Vic's mouth quirked in something almost like a smile. Yes, sir, Marine. They moved toward the kitchen, and Michael tried not to think about how natural it felt to have someone working alongside him again. How the bar felt less empty with voices filling it. How Emma's laughter from her room, showing Ruth her drawings, was the best sound he'd heard in 3 years. He also tried not to think about the foreclosure notice in his pocket, or the $47 scattered across the floor. Or the fact that in 3 days, none of this would matter because strangers would come to lock the doors and the Mountain Haven Inn would become just another failure. But for tonight, with snow battering the windows and 20 women filling his empty bar with life, Michael let himself pretend that maybe things could be different. He didn't know yet that this storm would change everything. That Vic's arrival wasn't coincidence, but fate. That sometimes the people you shelter end up being the ones who save you. All that would come later. For now, there was just the storm, the strangers who'd become guests, and his daughter's laughter echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long. Michael pulled out what food. He had 3 cans of beans, half a bag of rice, some potatoes, coffee that was more dust than grounds. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Vic appeared beside him looking at the meager supplies. She didn't comment on their inadequacy. Instead, she pulled out her phone and made a note. "We've got supplies on the bikes. MREs, energy bars, coffee, actual coffee. Not whatever that is." She nodded at his nearly empty container. "We'll pool resources. Make it work." Vic. "We're not charity, Michael. We're survival. There's a difference." She looked at him directly. "When my father was deployed, his unit lived by one rule: share. Everything waste, nothing leave, no one behind. I built Iron Sisters on the same principle. Semper Fi." Vic's eyes widened slightly. "You are a Marine." "Was. Long time ago." "There's no such thing as a former Marine. You know that." Michael did know that. The Corps stayed in your blood whether you wore the uniform or not. "2 tours, he said, answering her unasked question. "Afghanistan. Got out when Sarah got pregnant. Figured being a father beat being deployed." "Your daughter's lucky. My father never made it home for his." The weight of that statement hung between them. All the fathers who never came home. All the children who grew up with flag-draped coffins and folded uniforms instead of bedtime stories. "I'm sorry," Michael said again, meaning it more this time. "Don't be. He died doing what he believed in. That's more than most people get." Vic moved to the window, looking out at the storm. "But it taught me something. Life's too short and too fragile to face it alone. When the storm hits, and the storm always hits, you need people at your back." "Is that why you ride with Iron Sisters?" "I ride with them because they're my family. The one I chose when the one I was born into couldn't understand why success wasn't enough." She turned back to face him. "I built a tech company from nothing. Sold it for more money than I'll ever spend. Bought it back 5 years later because the new owners ran it into the ground. Now I'm CEO again and everyone thinks I should be satisfied. But you're not. Money doesn't fill the empty spaces. Neither does a corner office or board meetings or seeing my name in Forbes." Vic's voice softened. "But this riding with women who've survived things that would break most people, helping strangers in storms. This fills something no amount of success ever could." Michael understood that more than she probably realized. The Marines had given him purpose beyond himself. The inn was supposed to do the same. But alone, drowning in debt, watching everything he'd built with Sarah slip away, that purpose had started to feel more like punishment. "How'd you know," he asked, "that I needed them as much as they needed me?" Vic smiled. "I didn't. But I'm rarely wrong about people." From the main room came the sound of laughter. Someone was telling a story. Voices overlapping in the way people do when they're warming up when danger has passed and relief is setting in. Emma's voice rose above the others. "And then the butterfly landed right on Mommy's hand. She said it was a sign that Grandma was visiting from heaven." Michael's throat tightened. Emma rarely talked about Sarah with him anymore, like she was trying to protect him from the grief. But here with these strangers, she was sharing her mother's memory freely. "Your daughter's resilient," Vic observed. "She's had to be." "That's not fair to her, or to you." "Life's not fair. I learned that in the desert. You learn it over and over until it stops surprising you. Learning it and accepting it are different things." Before Michael could respond, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then the generator's steady hum stuttered and coughed. Everyone in the bar froze. The hum returned, but weaker now, struggling. "That doesn't sound good," someone said. Michael was already moving toward the back room where the generator lived. Vic followed without being asked. The machine sat in its shed, rattling and wheezing like an old man with pneumonia. Michael checked the fuel gauge, less than a quarter tank. At this rate, with this many people, they'd be lucky to make it through the night. "How much fuel do you have?" Vic asked. "This is it. Reserve tanks. Couldn't afford to fill them this month." Vic pulled out her phone, then remembered there was no signal. She cursed softly. "We have fuel on the bikes, but not enough for a generator this size. And we can't siphon it without thawing the tanks first." She studied the machine, her expression calculating. "How cold does this place get without heat?" "Cold enough to be dangerous with this many people, especially if the storm lasts 3 days. Then we need to make this fuel last and find alternatives." "Alternatives like what?" "Body heat. Consolidation. Everyone sleeps in the main room around the wood stove. We use the generator sparingly, just enough to keep pipes from freezing." Vic looked at him. "Your military training covered cold weather survival. Enough of it. Then you know we can do this. It's not comfortable, but we've survived worse." Michael thought about Emma sleeping in the main room with 20 strangers. About giving up the privacy and safety of her bedroom. About asking his daughter to endure one more hardship in a life that had already taken too much from her. But Vic was right. They could survive this. People had survived worse. "Okay," he said. "We consolidate. Ration the generator. Make the fuel last until the storm breaks or help arrives. There's something else." Vic hesitated, which seemed unusual for her. "I saw the papers on your bar. The foreclosure notice." Michael's spine stiffened. "That's not your concern. 3 days until deadline. Summit Ridge Corporation. That's Derek Hastings' outfit." "You know him?" "Know of him. Iron Sisters have dealt with developers like him before. They target vulnerable properties, apply pressure until the owners buckle, then buy cheap and sell high." Vic's voice hardened. "Is that what's happening here? My business problems aren't my concern. You said that already." Vic stepped closer. "But here's the thing, Michael. You sheltered us without hesitation. Fed us with food you probably needed for yourself and Emma. Offered us safety when you're facing your own crisis. That makes it my concern. Whether you like it or not. I don't need charity. Good. Because I'm not offering it. I'm offering alliance." Vic held his gaze. "Iron Sisters takes care of its own. You helped us. We help you. That's how this works. You don't owe me anything." "I didn't say we owed you. I said we help each other. There's a difference." Michael wanted to refuse, wanted to keep fighting alone like he'd been doing for 3 years. But standing in the cold shed with a dying generator and $47 to his name, and 20 women depending on him for shelter, pride seemed like a luxury he couldn't afford. "I don't know what you think you can do," he said finally. "The debt's $18,000. I've got 3 days. Unless you're carrying that kind of cash. I'm not, but I know people who might be able to help. And I know how to make Derek Hastings think twice about whatever pressure tactics he's using." "How?" Vic's smile was sharp. "Let me worry about that. You worry about keeping everyone warm until the storm passes." They returned to the main room where Ruth had organized the women into groups, some gathering blankets and sleeping bags from the bikes, others arranging the space to maximize heat efficiency, still others inventorying supplies. Military efficiency. Michael recognized it because he'd lived it. Emma sat in the middle of the organized chaos, drawing on a piece of paper someone had given her, completely unfazed by 20 women reorganizing her living room. "She's something," Ruth said, coming to stand beside Michael. "Reminds me of my Sophie at that age. Tough as nails, but soft as butter underneath. She's had to be tough. No child should have to be, but some are born to it anyway. Ruth's voice gentled. She talks about her mother a lot. That's healthy. Means she's not bottling it up. She never talks about Sarah with me. Because she's protecting you. Kids do that. They see their parents struggling and they try to make themselves smaller, easier, less trouble. Ruth looked at him directly. But kids shouldn't have to protect their parents, Michael. That's backwards. I'm doing the best I can. I know, but doing it alone is breaking you both. The words hit harder because they were true. Michael had been so focused on keeping the inn running, on paying the bills, on surviving day to day, that he hadn't noticed how small Emma had made herself. How quiet, how careful. When had his daughter learned to tiptoe through her own home? I don't know how to do this differently, he admitted. Start by letting people help. These women. Ruth gestured to the Iron Sisters. They didn't ride through a blizzard just to find shelter. They rode because they believe in something bigger than themselves. Let them believe in you too. Before Michael could respond, Casey, the young woman with blue hair, called out from across the room. Hey boss, I've got something. Vic moved to her immediately. Casey had her laptop open, tethered to some kind of portable hotspot. Signal's weak, but I've got access, Casey said. Ran a search on Summit Ridge Corporation and Derek Hastings. You're going to want to see this. Michael joined them, looking over their shoulders at the screen. Articles filled the display. Lawsuits, allegations, property disputes. Summit Ridge has been targeting properties all along this ridge, Casey explained, scrolling through documents. 6 acquisitions in the last 18 months, all of them following the same pattern: financial pressure code violations, accelerated foreclosure proceedings. That's not illegal, Michael said, though his stomach churned. No, but this is. Casey pulled up a zoning map. Summit Ridge has applications filed for a massive resort development, but they're missing one crucial element. She zoomed in on the map. Michael's property sat highlighted in red right in the middle of the proposed development's main access road. Without your land, their project doesn't work, Casey said. The road access they need cuts right through here. They can't build without it. So they're trying to force me out. They're engineering your foreclosure, Vic corrected. Creating the crisis, then offering to solve it at their price. Her voice went cold. That's not business. That's predatory. And it's exactly the kind of thing Iron Sisters was built to fight. Michael stared at the map, understanding clicking into place. The medical bills he couldn't pay. The roof damage from last winter's storm that the insurance company refused to cover. The bank suddenly demanding immediate payment on a loan they'd restructured just 6 months ago. He'd thought it was bad luck. It was sabotage. Derek Hastings is coming here tomorrow, Michael said quietly. He texted me earlier. Wants to talk about options. Then let him come. Vic's smile was sharp as broken glass. I've been wanting to meet him anyway. The generator coughed again, louder this time. The lights dimmed and steadied, but the message was clear. Time was running out. Everyone to the main room, Vic called out. We're bunking together tonight. Body heat and wood stove only. Generators for emergencies. The Iron Sisters moved efficiently, gathering around the stove, spreading out sleeping bags and blankets. Someone started making coffee over the fire, real coffee from their supplies. Someone else broke out energy bars and MREs. Emma brought her quilt from her room and settled between Ruth and a woman named Jordan, who had tattoos of roses up both arms. Is this like camping? Emma asked. Exactly like camping, Jordan replied. Except warmer and with better company. Michael watched his daughter smile, really smile, for the first time in months. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, something fragile but real was taking shape. Not quite trust, not yet. But the possibility of it. Vic appeared beside him with 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one. To storms that bring unexpected allies, she said. Michael took the cup, feeling its warmth against his frozen fingers. To allies, he agreed. Neither of them knew yet how much they would need each other before this was over. How Derek Hastings would bring more than conversation tomorrow. How the storm would get worse before it got better. How sometimes the people you shelter in a blizzard end up being the ones who save your life. But they would learn. Starting tomorrow, when the real battle began. Morning came with the kind of silence that meant the storm had gotten worse. Michael woke on the floor near the wood stove, his back screaming from sleeping on hard planks, surrounded by 20 women in sleeping bags, who'd somehow made his empty inn feel like a crowded barracks. Emma was already awake, sitting cross-legged between Ruth and Jordan, whispering about something that made all three of them giggle. The sound hit Michael square in the chest. When was the last time he'd heard his daughter laugh like that? "Coffee's ready." Vic appeared beside him, holding out a steaming cup. "Real coffee this time. You look like you need it." Michael took it gratefully. "What time is it?" 7:30. "I've been up since 5 checking the generator and the roads." Her expression told him everything he needed to know. Storm doubled back. "We've got another 2 feet of snow and the temperature dropped to 15 below. Nothing's moving on that mountain road." "How long?" "County dispatch says maybe tomorrow afternoon if we're lucky, day after if we're not." Vic sipped her own coffee. "We're officially cut off." Michael processed this. Another day, maybe 2, with dwindling supplies and a generator that wouldn't last through lunch. "We need to talk about Derek Hastings," Vic said quietly. "He's not coming today. Nobody's coming in this weather. But when he does show up, we need a plan." "What kind of plan?" "The kind where we make him understand that you're not alone anymore. That pushing you means pushing all of us." "Vic, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but—" "Daddy!" Emma's voice interrupted. She stood a few feet away, clutching her quilt. "Miss Ruth says we need to check the pipes so they don't freeze. Can I help?" Michael looked at his daughter's eager face and felt something crack in his chest. When had Emma started asking permission to help in her own home? "Of course you can help, baby. You know where the crawlspace access is." "Under the kitchen sink. Mommy showed me once when the pipes made funny noises." "That's right. You show Miss Ruth where it is okay." Emma beamed and ran back to Ruth, already chattering about what her mother had taught her about winter plumbing. "She's a good kid," Vic said. "She's had to grow up too fast." "That's not your fault." "Feels like it is." Vic set down her coffee and turned to face him fully. "Michael, can I ask you something? And I need you to be honest." "Okay." "When was the last time you asked anyone for help with anything?" Michael opened his mouth, then closed it. He couldn't remember. "That's what I thought." Vic's voice softened. "You're carrying everything alone. The inn, Emma, the debt, Sarah's memory. All of it on your shoulders like you're still a Marine holding the line while everyone else retreats." "That's what you do. You hold the line." "Even when the line is breaking you?" Michael didn't answer because they both knew the truth. The front door rattled suddenly, violently. Everyone in the room tensed. "Hello," a man's voice muffled by wind. "Michael Torres, you in there?" Michael's stomach dropped. He knew that voice. Derek Hastings. He moved to the window and looked out. A massive black pickup truck with snow chains sat in his driveway, and Derek stood on the porch in an expensive parka that probably cost more than Michael's entire winter clothing budget. Behind him, another man, bigger, harder looking, wearing a security company jacket. "He brought muscle," Casey said from behind her laptop. "That's not a friendly visit." Michael moved to open the door, but Vic's hand caught his arm. "Wait, let me handle this. This is my property. And I'm a CEO who deals with corporate bullies for a living. Trust me on this one." Before Michael could argue, Vic opened the door. Derek's practiced smile faltered when he saw her instead of Michael. "I'm here to see Michael Torres." Derek said, his voice carrying that smooth condescension that wealthy men perfected in business school. "He's occupied at the moment. I'm Victoria Cameron. Perhaps I can help you." Derek's eyes narrowed, reassessing. "This is private property business." and I'm a guest on said property during a state of emergency, representing Iron Sisters Motorcycle Club and Cameron Security Systems." Vic smiled without warmth. "You're Derek Hastings from Summit Ridge Corporation, correct? How do you? I make it my business to know who's pressuring people I care about. Especially when that pressure involves predatory lending practices and engineered foreclosures." Derek's smile vanished completely. "I don't know what you think you know. I know your company has targeted 6 properties along this ridge in 18 months. I know you need Michael's land for your resort access road. I know you've been working with the bank to accelerate foreclosure proceedings." Vic's voice went cold. "And I know that if any of this continues, you'll find yourself answering questions from the Colorado Attorney General's office about your business practices." The man behind Derek shifted his hand, moving toward his jacket. Michael tensed, but Vic didn't even glance at him. "Tell your friend to keep his hands where I can see them," Vic said calmly. "We have 21 people in this building, all of them witnesses, some of them lawyers. All of us recording this conversation on multiple devices." Casey held up her phone from inside, waving it. Derek's face flushed red. "You can't threaten me." "I'm not threatening, I'm informing. There's a difference." Vic stepped closer. "Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Hastings. You're going to get back in your truck and drive away. You're going to tell your bank friends that the foreclosure timeline needs a 90-day extension for review. And you're going to stop any and all pressure tactics against Michael Torres and this property." "Or what?" "Or I make one phone call to my legal team and Summit Ridge Corporation spends the next year in regulatory hell while every property acquisition you've made gets investigated. How do you think your investors will feel about that?" Derek stared at her, his jaw working. The security guard looked at his boss, waiting for orders. "This isn't over," Derek finally said. "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet," Vic smiled. "Have a safe drive down the mountain, Mr. Hastings. Those roads can be treacherous." Derek turned and stalked back to his truck. The security guard followed, glancing back once with an expression that might have been respect. Vic closed the door and locked it. The room erupted. "Did you see his face? Boss, that was incredible. He looked like he was going to have a stroke." Michael stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. In 3 minutes, Vic had done what he'd been failing to do for months, made Derek Hastings back down. Vic returned to the coffee pot, poured herself another cup, and took a long sip, like she'd just finished a routine phone call, instead of verbally destroying a man on his own porch. "That should buy us time," she said. "But he'll be back with lawyers and better leverage. We need to solidify our position before then." "How?" Michael found his voice. "Vic, what you just did, I don't even know how to. Thank me by letting us help you properly. No more lone wolf routine." She looked at him directly. "Derek's right about one thing. Fighting him alone, you'll lose. But with Iron Sisters backing you, different story entirely." Ruth appeared with Emma, who looked confused by all the commotion. "Was that the bad man?" Emma asked. "The one who wants to take our house?" Michael knelt beside her. "That was Mr. Hastings. But he's not taking anything, baby, I promise." "Miss Vic scared him away." Emma's eyes were wide. "She was like a superhero." Vic laughed, a real laugh that transformed her serious face. "Not a superhero, kiddo. Just someone who knows how to deal with bullies. Mommy used to say bullies are just scared people being mean because they don't know how to be strong the right way." The simple wisdom stopped everyone. Vic crouched down to Emma's level. "Your mommy was a smart lady." She was the smartest. She knew everything about everything. Emma's voice wobbled slightly. "I wish she was here to help Daddy. He's trying so hard, but he gets really tired and sometimes I hear him crying at night when he thinks I'm asleep." Michael felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Emma's small hand found his. "It's okay, Daddy. Miss Vic and Miss Ruth and all the motorcycle ladies are here to help now, so you don't have to do everything by yourself anymore." Michael couldn't speak. He just pulled Emma into a hug and tried not to cry in front of 20 women who were suddenly looking anywhere except at him. Ruth's hand touched his shoulder. Kids see everything. They always do. When Michael could breathe again, he straightened. Emma patted his cheek like he was the child needing comfort. I'm going to draw pictures for everyone, Emma announced. So they know they're welcome here. Mommy always said guests should feel special. She ran off to get her art supplies, leaving Michael standing in a room full of women who'd somehow witnessed his worst moment of weakness. I'm sorry, he started. Don't. Vic's voice was firm. Don't apologize for being human, for struggling, for loving your daughter enough that her pain breaks your heart. She glanced around at her crew. Every woman in this room has been exactly where you are, broken, alone, trying to hold it together while everything falls apart. Damn right, Jordan said. I was living in my car with 2 kids when Iron Sisters found me. Ruth helped me get a job, Vic co-signed my apartment lease, and Casey taught me basic accounting so I could manage my money. I was running from an abusive ex when I joined, another woman added. Iron Sisters hid me for 3 months until the legal protection orders went through. One by one, the women shared their stories. Domestic violence survivors, veterans with PTSD, women who'd lost everything and rebuilt with help from this unlikely family of motorcycle riders. We're not a charity organization, Vic said when the stories finished. We're survivors, helping survivors. That's different. Michael looked at these women, really looked at them, and saw what he'd missed before. The scars, visible and invisible. The hard-won strength that came from surviving things that should have destroyed them. They weren't here by accident. They were here because recognizing struggle was second nature to them. I don't know what to say, Michael admitted. Say you'll let us help. That's all we're asking. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Vic pulled out her phone, still no signal, and cursed. I need to contact my legal team and financial people. Casey, any way to boost the satellite connection? Maybe if I can get to higher ground, that ridge behind the property might work. Take Jordan with you. Don't go alone. Casey and Jordan bundled up and headed out into the storm. Michael watched them disappear into the white, then turned back to find Ruth organizing breakfast from their combined supplies. I'm making what my grandmother called depression stew, Ruth announced, which is a fancy name for whatever we have gets thrown in a pot. Michael, you got any spices? Some. Sarah was the cook. I mostly just heat things up. Then you're about to get a lesson. Emma, honey, want to help. Emma bounced over, and suddenly Michael found himself watching his daughter and a grandmother figure working side by side in his kitchen, chatting about recipes and the proper way to dice an onion. Ruth's good with her, Vic said quietly. She's good with everyone. Michael paused. Thank you for what you did with Derek. I've dealt with worse. Corporate boardrooms full of men who think being loud equals being right. Derek's an amateur compared to some of the sharks I've faced. Still, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. Because my father taught me that when you have power, you use it to protect people who can't protect themselves. That's what he did as a Marine. That's what I try to do now. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Ruth teach Emma cooking basics, while other Iron Sisters moved around the inn, fixing small things, a loose door hinge, a drafty window, a flickering light fixture. They're very good at this, Michael observed. We've had practice. Some of our members are contractors, electricians, plumbers. We do a lot of renovation work for women's shelters places that can't afford professional rates. Vic smiled slightly. Turns out tough motorcycle women with tools are pretty intimidating to deadbeat donors who suddenly remember their checkbooks. Michael laughed, actually laughed for the first time in days. Casey and Jordan burst back in, covered in snow and grinning. Got through, Casey shouted. Signal's weak, but I've made contact with Wyoming chapter and your corporate team boss. They're mobilizing. Mobilizing what? Everything. Legal team is already filing extension requests with the bank. Financial team is putting together an emergency loan package. And Casey's grin widened. We've got 43 Iron Sisters chapters pledging support. Some of them are riding here as soon as the road's clear. How many is that in people? Best estimate about 200 riders. Michael's head spun. 200 people are coming here. Not all at once. But yes, word spread through the network about what's happening. Summit Ridge went after a Marine veteran's single father. Our members take that personally. Vic's expression turned fierce. Derek Hastings has no idea what he started. The generator coughed and died. In the sudden silence, everyone froze. That's not good, someone said unnecessarily. Michael was already moving toward the generator shed. Vic followed along with several other women. The machine sat silent and cold. Michael checked everything: fuel line, battery connections. Nothing obvious wrong except the fuel tank reading empty. We're out, he said flatly. That's it. We're on wood heat only now. How cold will it get? Vic asked. Inside, probably 40 degrees by tonight. Colder in the bedrooms. We'll survive, but it won't be comfortable. Then we make it work. Everyone stays in the main room. We keep the fire going 24/7. Rotate watch shifts so nobody gets too cold while sleeping. They returned to find Ruth had already started organizing the space more efficiently, pushing furniture to create a central sleeping area, hanging blankets as wind barriers, establishing a rotation for fire tending. I've handled worse, Ruth said when Michael tried to apologize. Church camp in Minnesota during a cold snap. 40 kids, one wood stove, and a broken furnace. We survived fine, and the kids thought it was the best adventure ever. Emma appeared to be thinking the same thing. She'd set up her drawing station near the stove and was making personalized welcome cards for each Iron Sister, little stick figures on motorcycles with names carefully printed underneath. This is for you, Miss Casey, Emma said, presenting her latest creation. I drew your hair blue because it's pretty. Casey took the drawing like it was made of gold. Thank you, Emma. This is the nicest thing anyone's given me in forever. Really, really. Emma beamed and went back to her drawings. Michael found himself standing uselessly while the Iron Sisters efficiently transformed his struggling inn into a functional winter camp. They knew what they were doing, knew how to work together, anticipate needs, solve problems collaboratively. He'd forgotten what that felt like. Being part of a team. Stop hovering, Vic said, appearing beside him again. You're making me nervous. I should be doing something. You are doing something. You're letting us help. That's harder than it looks. Is it always this organized with you all? We're bikers, not barbarians. Organization keeps people alive on long rides. Vic pulled him toward the kitchen. Come on. Ruth needs someone tall to reach the top shelf. They spent the afternoon preparing food rationing supplies and making plans. Casey managed to maintain sporadic satellite connection and relayed updates. The legal team had secured a temporary hold on foreclosure proceedings pending review. The bank wasn't happy, but also wasn't eager to look like they were kicking out a veteran during a natural disaster. Public relations nightmare, Casey explained. Especially with 200 Iron Sisters about to descend on this town, asking pointed questions about predatory lending practices. We're not actually, Michael started. They don't know that. The threat is enough. Casey's grin was wicked. Never underestimate the power of 200 angry women on motorcycles. By evening, the temperature had dropped further. Everyone gathered around the stove in layers of clothing, sharing body heat and stories. Emma sat in Michael's lap, fighting sleep, while Ruth told tales about riding across the country and the strange, wonderful people she'd met. And then the guy says, "Ma'am, I don't think motorcycles are allowed in the drive-thru," Ruth recounted. And I said, "Sir, I've been riding for 16 hours, and I'm getting a milkshake whether you like it or not." Emma giggled sleepily. "Did you get the milkshake?" "Got two. One for me, one for the manager who decided I was the best story he'd heard all week." Emma's eyes drooped closed. Michael held her closer, feeling her small heartbeat against his chest. Vic watched them from across the fire, her expression unreadable. "You're good at this," she said quietly when Ruth's story ended and general conversation resumed. "At what? Being a father. Putting her first. Keeping her safe, even when your world's falling apart. I'm failing her. Can't even keep a roof over her head." "That's not true, and you know it. This—" Vic gestured at the room full of women and Emma sleeping peacefully despite the cold and chaos. "This is you succeeding. You opened your door to strangers in a storm. You trusted us when you had no reason to. You're teaching Emma that community matters more than pride. Sarah would have known what to do better than me. Maybe. But Sarah's not here. You are. And you're doing fine." Michael looked down at his daughter, her face peaceful in sleep. "She mentioned my crying at night. I thought I was being quiet." "Kids always know. They're more perceptive than we give them credit for." Vic paused. "My mother cried for 2 years after my father died. I was 12. Used to sit outside her door and count how many times she'd sob before it went quiet. Thought if I counted high enough she'd feel better." "Did it help?" "No. But it taught me that grief doesn't have a timeline or a volume control. It just is. And all we can do is survive it and hope we come out better on the other side." "Are you better?" Vic considered this. "Different. Not sure if it's better or just changed. But I built something good from it. Iron Sisters exists because I needed family after mine broke. These women are my father's legacy as much as mine." Someone started playing soft music on their phone battery dying, but enough for a few songs. Emma stirred in Michael's arms, but didn't wake. "You should rest," Vic said. "I'll take first watch on the fire." "I can—" "Michael, rest, that's not a request." Too tired to argue, Michael carried Emma to their designated sleeping area. He laid her down, tucked her in, and settled beside her. Within minutes, exhaustion claimed him. He woke sometime deep in the night to find Vic still by the fire feeding it logs and watching the flames. The room was full of sleeping women, their steady breathing creating a rhythm like ocean waves. Michael got up quietly and joined her. "Thought I told you to rest," Vic said without looking at him. "You're not my commanding officer." "Lucky for you." They sat in companionable silence, watching the fire dance. "Derek's going to come back harder," Michael said eventually. "Once the storm clears and he gets his lawyers organized. What you did today just made him angrier. Let him be angry. Angry people make mistakes. We'll be ready." "How can you be so sure?" Vic turned to look at him, her gray eyes reflecting firelight. "Because I've fought bigger battles than Derek Hastings. Built a company from nothing while men told me I'd fail. Watched it crumble and rebuilt it stronger. Survived losing my father and found purpose in his absence." She smiled slightly. "Some small-time property developer doesn't scare me." "You scare me a little," Michael admitted. "Good. I'd be disappointed if I didn't." They laughed quietly, mindful of the sleepers. "When this is over," Vic said, "and the road's clear and my people head home, what then? You going to go back to fighting alone?" "Honestly, I don't know how to do it any other way." "Then learn. Because Emma needs you to, and because—" Vic paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "Because I think we could help each other. Iron Sisters needs permanent safe houses along these mountain routes. You need sustainable income that doesn't rely on seasonal tourists. We could work something out." "You'd do that." "I don't say things I don't mean. It's bad business and worse friendship." "Is that what this is? Friendship? Getting there. Or it could be. If you stop being so damn stubborn about accepting help." Michael thought about this, about Vic's offer, about Iron Sisters becoming a permanent presence, about not being alone anymore. It terrified him, but it also felt like hope. "Okay," he said. "When the storm clears, we'll talk details." "Good." Vic stretched, her joints cracking. Now go back to sleep before Emma wakes up and wonders why Daddy's not there. Michael returned to his daughter, but sleep came slowly. His mind churned with possibilities with the future that had seemed impossible yesterday, but felt almost tangible now. Outside, the storm continued its assault. Inside, 21 people slept warm and safe. And in the darkness, Michael Torres allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were going to survive this after all. The second day dawned colder than the first. Michael woke to find Emma already up helping Ruth distribute what passed for breakfast energy bars, instant oatmeal made with melted snow water, and coffee so weak it was basically hot brown water. "Morning, Daddy." Emma handed him a cup. "Miss Ruth says we're pioneers now, like the old days, when people had to survive with just what they had." "Is that what we are?" "Uh-huh. She says pioneers were brave and smart and worked together, just like us." Ruth caught his eye over Emma's head and winked. Leave it to a former school principal to turn a crisis into a history lesson. Michael took the coffee and joined Vic by the window. Outside, the world was a wall of white. Nothing moved. Nothing existed beyond 50 feet except more snow. "County Dispatch called in on Casey's satellite connection an hour ago," Vic said. "Roads are completely impassable. They're not even attempting to plow until the storm breaks." "When will that be?" "Best case tomorrow afternoon. Worst case 3 more days." Michael did the math in his head. Food, water, firewood. They could stretch it, but barely. "We'll manage," Vic said, reading his expression. "We've got people on rotating shifts melting snow for water, others rationing food down to the calorie. Ruth's already planning 3 more meals from what we have left. She's a miracle worker. She's a grandmother who raised 4 kids on a teacher's salary during the recession. Making something from nothing is her superpower." They stood in silence watching snow pile against the windows. Michael could feel the cold seeping through the walls, through the floor, into his bones. "There's something else," Vic said quietly. Casey picked up chatter on the emergency channels. Summit Ridge Corporation filed papers yesterday with the county claiming we're operating an illegal commercial establishment. They're trying to use our presence here as evidence of zoning violations. Michael's stomach dropped. "Can they do that?" "They can try. Derek's desperate. We embarrassed him yesterday, and now he's throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks." Vic turned to face him. "But here's the thing, we've got documentation of everything. Time-stamped photos, recorded conversations, witness statements from 21 people. If Derek wants to fight dirty, we've got ammunition. I don't want Emma caught in the middle of this. She's already in the middle, has been since Summit Ridge targeted your property. The question isn't whether to fight, it's how to win." Before Michael could respond, Casey rushed over, laptop in hand. "Boss, you need to see this. It's about Summit Ridge and it's bad. Really bad." They huddled around the laptop. Casey had pulled up financial records permits and email chains that painted a disturbing picture. Summit Ridge has been systematically targeting properties along this ridge for 3 years. Casey explained, scrolling through documents. "But it's worse than we thought. They've been working with local officials to deny permits, inflate property taxes, and push through code violations. They've got the county assessor in their pocket and possibly someone at the bank." "How deep does this go?" Vic asked. "Deep enough that the Attorney General's office would be very interested. This isn't just predatory lending, it's corruption, possibly racketeering." Michael felt sick. "How many people have they done this to?" "At least 15 property owners that I can document. Most of them sold under pressure. 2 went into foreclosure. 1," Casey paused, "committed suicide last year after losing his family ranch." The room went silent. "Show me everything," Vic said, her voice deadly calm. "Every email, every payment, every connection. We're building a case. Already on it. I've got contacts at 3 major newspapers and a friend at 60 Minutes who owes me a favor." "Good. Make the calls when you can get signal. This stops now." Michael's hands were shaking. He'd known Derek was ruthless, but this, This was systematic destruction of people's lives for profit. "The man who died," Michael said. "Did he have family? Wife and 2 teenage sons. They moved to Nebraska to live with her parents." Michael thought about Emma, about how close they'd come to the same fate. How without Vic and the Iron Sisters, he might have been the next desperate man making desperate choices. "We need to contact those other property owners," Vic said. "Build a coalition, safety in numbers and all that." "Most of them don't want to talk about it," Casey replied. "I tried reaching out. They're scared or ashamed or both." "Then we make it safe for them to talk. Show them they're not alone." Vic looked at Michael. "You okay with your story going public? If it helps other people?" "Yeah, I'm okay with it." Emma appeared at his side, slipping her small hand into his. "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" Michael knelt down to her level. "Yeah, baby, we're going to be okay. Promise?" "Promise." Emma studied his face with those 2 old eyes, then nodded. "Okay, I believe you." She ran back to Ruth, who was teaching several Iron Sisters how to make bread with their limited supplies. The normalcy of it, the simple act of cooking together, felt surreal against the backdrop of corruption and danger. "She trusts you," Vic observed. "She shouldn't. I've failed her too many times." "No, you've struggled. That's different. Failing would be giving up. You haven't done that." "I came close." "But you didn't. That's what matters." Jordan approached her rose tattoos vivid against her pale skin. "Boss, we've got a problem. Firewood's running low. At our current burn rate, we've got maybe 12 hours left." Michael cursed under his breath. "There's more wood in the shed out back, but it's buried under 4 feet of snow." "Then we dig?" Vic said simply. Jordan Casey grabbed 3 others and start excavating. Michael showed them where. Within minutes, 5 women were bundled up and heading into the storm. Michael led them around back where the woodshed stood buried like a white tomb. They dug with their hands at first, then found shovels in the garage. The work was brutal. Snow kept falling as fast as they could clear it. Wind stole their breath. Cold bit through every layer of clothing. "This is insane," Jordan shouted over the wind. "We can't even see 10 feet. "Rope!" Michael yelled back. "We need rope to tie ourselves together." Casey disappeared and returned with climbing rope from someone's saddlebag. They tied themselves together like mountaineers and continued digging. It took 2 hours to reach the woodshed door. By then, all 6 of them were shaking with cold and exhaustion. But inside were stacks of seasoned firewood, enough for days if they were careful. They formed a chain, passing logs from person to person back to the inn. It was slow, backbreaking work, but eventually they had enough wood stacked inside to last. Michael's hands were numb and bleeding by the time they finished. Vic took one look at them and dragged him to the kitchen sink. "This is going to sting," she warned, running warm water over his split knuckles. Michael gritted his teeth as feeling returned in waves of pain. "You should have worn gloves." "Didn't have any that fit. Sarah always bought my gloves, and I never—" His voice broke. "I never learned what size I needed." Vic's hands gentled on his. "It's the small things, isn't it? The everyday stuff that reminds you they're gone." "Every damn day. Emma needed new shoes last month and I didn't know her size. Had to guess. Got it wrong. She wore them anyway without complaining because she knew I was trying." Michael's eyes burned. What kind of father doesn't know his daughter's shoe size? The kind who's doing everything alone, while grieving and fighting to survive. "Cut yourself some slack, Michael." "I don't know how." "Then learn. Start by asking for help with the small things, like this." Vic held up his bandaged hands. "You should have asked someone to help dig. Should have admitted you needed gloves. Should have trusted us to handle it." "I'm not used to trusting people." "I noticed. But trust isn't a weakness, it's a strategy. Marines don't go into battle alone, they go with a squad. Be smart enough to build yours." Ruth appeared with hot soup made from the last of their vegetables and some kind of magic. "Eat," she ordered. "Both of you. You're no good to anyone if you collapse." They ate in silence, while around them, the Iron Sisters organized shifts, fire tending, snow melting, cooking, keeping watch. It was a well-oiled machine, each person knowing their role, working together seamlessly. "How long did it take to build this?" Michael asked Vic. "This kind of coordination. Years. A lot of trial and error. Some spectacular failures." Vic smiled slightly. "First year we had 3 chapters and couldn't agree on anything. Nearly fell apart 6 times, but we kept showing up, kept working through disagreements. Eventually figured out that ego kills organizations, but purpose sustains them." "What's your purpose?" "Same as yours. Protecting people who need it. Creating safe spaces. Fighting bullies who prey on vulnerability." Vic met his eyes. "Sound familiar?" That's what this inn was supposed to be. A safe place. It still can be. Will be. But bigger. Better. With backup. Emma climbed into Michael's lap, carefully avoiding his bandaged hands. "Daddy, Miss Ruth says we're going to make snow ice cream. Can I help?" "Snow ice cream. You take clean snow, add condensed milk and vanilla, and it becomes dessert," Ruth explained. "Found a can of condensed milk in your pantry, and Casey had vanilla extract. The kids love it." "I'm not a kid," Emma protested. "Everyone's a kid when it comes to snow ice cream," Ruth replied. "That's the rule." Michael watched his daughter beam and run off to help with this simple magic trick. When had she become so resilient, so adaptable? "She's stronger than you think," Vic said softly. "She's 8. So I was 8 when my father deployed the first time. Thought I'd die from missing him. But my mother taught me something important. Strength isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing what needs doing anyway." Is that what you're teaching your Iron Sisters? Every day. Some of them come to us broken, abused, lost. We don't fix them, nobody can fix another person. But we show them they're not alone. That scared doesn't mean weak. That asking for help is brave, not shameful. Michael thought about this. About how he'd spent 3 years trying to be strong for Emma by doing everything alone. How maybe he'd been teaching her the wrong lesson entirely. "I don't know how to be different," he admitted. "Start small. Let Ruth teach you about snow ice cream. Let Casey show you her tech setup. Let Jordan tell you about her kids. Let us be people, not just helpers." Vic squeezed his shoulder gently. "And let yourself be human instead of a Marine holding a position alone." The satellite phone buzzed. Casey grabbed it, listened, and her face went pale. "Boss, we've got incoming. Sheriff's Department is attempting to reach us. They're responding to complaints about illegal occupation and possible code violations." "Derek works fast," Vic said, standing. "How long until they get here?" "They're not coming up the mountain in this weather, but they're requesting we evacuate to lower elevation for safety reasons." "That's bullshit, and they know it. Moving 21 people in a blizzard is suicide." "Tell them that." Vic took the phone. "This is Victoria Cameron. To whom am I speaking?" A pause while she listened. "Sheriff Donovan Good. You seem reasonable. Here's the situation: we have 21 people, including an 8-year-old child, sheltering during a state-declared emergency. Moving us would violate every safety protocol. We're warm-fed and secure." Another pause. "I understand Summit Ridge Corporation filed complaints. I also understand you're obligated to investigate. So investigate. But we're not moving until it's safe to do so, and frankly, anyone who suggests otherwise is prioritizing property rights over human lives." Vic's voice hardened. "With all due respect, Sheriff, if you attempt to force an evacuation during a blizzard, you'll be explaining to the media why you endangered citizens to satisfy a property developer's vendetta. Is that really how you want to be remembered?" She listened, then smiled. "Thank you, Sheriff. We'll cooperate fully with any investigation once the weather clears. Until then, we're staying put. Have a safe day." Vic ended the call and looked at Michael. He's backing off. Derek's losing ground. He'll try something else. Of course he will. Men like him always do. But each time he fails, we get stronger and he gets more desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. The afternoon stretched into evening. The storm showed no signs of breaking. Emma helped Ruth make the promised snow ice cream, and for a brief moment, the inn felt like a party instead of a siege. Michael found himself laughing, actually laughing, as Jordan told stories about her disastrous first motorcycle ride that ended with her in a ditch covered in mud, but grinning like an idiot. "Why'd you keep riding?" Emma asked. "If you fell." "Because the feeling right before I fell was the most free I'd ever felt. Like flying. Like nothing could hold me down." Jordan smiled. "Your mom ever tell you about feeling free?" "She said butterflies were free. That's why she loved them." "Smart lady. Freedom's important. So is knowing when to land safely and when to keep flying." Emma considered this seriously. "I think Daddy forgot how to fly. He just works and worries all the time." The honesty of it pierced Michael's chest. "Out of the mouths of babes," Sarah used to say. "Then maybe we need to remind him," Jordan said, winking at Emma. That night, as everyone settled around the fire for sleep, Emma crawled into Michael's lap. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby. I like the motorcycle ladies." "Me too." "Do you think they could stay forever?" Michael's throat tightened. "They have their own lives, Em. Their own homes. They can't stay here forever. But maybe sometimes, like for visits? Maybe. We'll see." Emma yawned, her head heavy against his chest. "I think Mommy sent them. To help us. She probably asked God to send guardian angels, and God was like, 'I've got some really cool motorcycle ladies who need a mission.' And Mommy was like, 'Perfect, send them to Michael and Emma.'" Michael's eyes burned. "You think so?" "Uh-huh. Because Mommy always took care of us. She wouldn't stop just because she's in heaven." The simple faith of a child who still believed in miracles. Vic settled beside them, her presence solid and reassuring. "She's right, you know," Vic said quietly. "About the guardian angel thing. Maybe not literally, but the universe has a way of putting people where they need to be when they need to be there." "You believe that?" "I believe my father's death led me to build Iron Sisters. I believe every woman in this room found us exactly when she needed to. I believe we ended up here in this storm at your door for a reason." Vic looked at Emma, already asleep. "Maybe your wife did send us. Or maybe we all just got lucky. Either way, here we are." "Here we are," Michael echoed. The fire crackled. Wind howled outside. 21 people breathed in unison, a temporary family forged by necessity and sustained by something harder to name. Michael held his daughter and watched Vic tend the fire, and for the first time in 3 years, he didn't feel completely alone. The feeling was terrifying and comforting in equal measure. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, something new was taking root, not just survival, but possibility. The kind of possibility that scared him because it required trust and vulnerability, and all the things he'd locked away after Sarah died. But Emma's words echoed in his mind. Mommy sent them. And maybe she had. Or maybe the universe had. Or maybe it was just chance and timing and desperation meeting compassion. Whatever it was, Michael found himself grateful. As sleep pulled him under, his last conscious thought was that he'd been fighting alone for so long, he'd forgotten what it felt like to have backup. Now, he remembered. And despite everything, the debt, the storm, the threat of losing his home, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate, fragile hope of a man with no options, but the solid, grounded hope of someone who'd found allies worth trusting. The storm would break eventually. Derek would come back with new tactics. The battle for Mountain Haven Inn was far from over. But for tonight, surrounded by fierce women who'd decided he was worth fighting for, Michael Torres allowed himself to believe they might actually win. Emma stirred against him, mumbling something about butterflies and motorcycles in her sleep. Michael kissed the top of her head and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tomorrow he wouldn't face them alone. That made all the difference in the world. The third morning brought silence. Not the howling, violent silence of the storm, but actual quiet. Michael woke to realize he couldn't hear wind anymore. He extracted himself carefully from Emma's sleeping form and moved to the window. The world outside had transformed overnight. Snow still covered everything, but the sky had cleared to a brilliant blue that hurt to look at. Sunlight hit the white landscape and turned it into something almost beautiful. "Storm broke around 4 a.m., Vic said from behind him. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. "I've been monitoring weather channels. Roads should be passable by this afternoon." "You didn't sleep." "Someone needed to keep watch. Figured it might as well be me." "Vic?" "Don't. I'm fine. Coffee's helping." She held up a cup that was probably her fifth of the morning. Casey appeared, laptop already open. "Boss, we've got movement. County Dispatch says plows started at dawn. Sheriff's Department is planning to come up here around noon to do their welfare check and investigate the complaints." "And Derek?" Michael asked. Radio silence, which worries me more than if he was making noise. Quiet means he's planning something. Ruth emerged from the kitchen area where she'd somehow conjured actual pancakes from their remaining flour and melted snow water. "Everyone eats before dealing with whatever fresh hell is coming. That's an order." Nobody argued with Ruth when she used that tone. They gathered around the fire, passing plates, sharing the last of the syrup Emma had found in a cabinet. The meal felt like a last supper, everyone knowing that once the roads cleared, their temporary family would scatter. "What happens now?" Emma asked, syrup on her chin. "Do all the motorcycle ladies have to leave?" "Eventually, honey," Ruth said gently. "We all have homes to get back to. Jobs, families." "But you'll visit, right?" "You promised to teach me more about cooking." "I promise. Cross my heart." Ruth made the gesture, and Emma mimicked it seriously. Michael caught Vic watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. Sadness. Longing. Something more complicated than either. "The Iron Sisters don't just disappear," Vic said to Emma. "We're a network, a family. Once you're part of it, you're always part of it." "Am I part of it?" "Do you want to be?" Emma nodded vigorously. "Then you are. Official and everything." Vic pulled out a small patch, a miniature version of the Iron Sisters insignia. "This is an honorary member patch for civilians who embody our values. Courage, loyalty, community. You've shown all three this week." Emma took the patch like it was made of precious metal. "Really? I'm really an Iron Sister, honorary member. Which is even more special because you earned it at age 8. Most people don't earn theirs until they're much older." Emma threw her arms around Vic's neck. The hug clearly surprised Vic, who froze for a moment before her arms came up to return it. "Thank you, Miss Vic. This is the best present ever besides the quilt Mommy made me." Vic's voice was rough when she spoke. "You're very welcome, Emma." Michael felt something crack wider in his chest. His daughter, who'd been so closed off since Sarah died, was blooming in the presence of these fierce women. Laughing more, talking more, being a child again, instead of a miniature adult trying to take care of him. He'd been so focused on survival, he hadn't seen how small Emma had made herself to fit around his grief. The satellite phone buzzed. Casey answered, listened, and her expression went grim. "Sheriff Donovan is 20 minutes out. He's got 2 deputies with him and—" She paused. "Derek Hastings is following in his own vehicle with someone who identifies himself as legal counsel." "Of course he is." Vic stood her CEO persona sliding into place like armor. "Everyone listen up. Sheriff arrives, we're cooperative but firm. We have nothing to hide. Michael is the property owner. We're legitimate guests during an emergency, and any allegations otherwise are harassment. What about the zoning violations Derek's claiming? Jordan asked. Let them prove it. Burden of proof is on the accuser. Vic looked at Michael. You okay with this? Do I have a choice? You always have a choice. You can fold now, give Derek what he wants, make this go away the easy way. Or you can fight. Michael thought about Sarah's promise to build something permanent. About Emma's honorary Iron Sisters patch clutched in her small fist. About Ruth teaching his daughter to cook, and Jordan teaching her that falling didn't mean you stopped flying. We fight. Good, because I wasn't ready to leave anyway. The vehicles arrived exactly 20 minutes later. Sheriff Donovan emerged first, followed by two deputies who looked uncomfortable. Derek's truck pulled up behind them, and he stepped out with a man in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. Michael opened the door before they could knock. Sheriff Donovan, Derek, gentlemen. Michael. The sheriff removed his hat. I'm here to conduct a wellness check and investigate complaints about potential code violations. Mind if we come in? Not at all, though fair warning, it's crowded. We've got 21 people taking shelter. They entered, and Michael watched the sheriff's eyes sweep the space professionally. He saw what Michael saw: organized efficiency people clearly making do with limited resources, no evidence of anything illegal. Derek's lawyer, however, saw opportunity. Sheriff, I'd like to document these conditions. My client has reason to believe this property is being operated as an unlicensed commercial establishment, which violates county zoning regulations. Your client can believe whatever he wants, Vic said, stepping forward. I'm Victoria Cameron, CEO of Cameron Security Systems. These are members of Iron Sisters Motorcycle Club. We were caught in the storm and Mr. Torres provided emergency shelter. No money changed hands. No services were rendered. We're guests, not customers. The lawyer smiled thinly. Can you prove that? Can you prove otherwise? Vic pulled out her phone. Because I have time-stamped documentation of everything: our arrival, the storm conditions, emergency radio communications with county dispatch. I also have recorded conversations with Mr. Hastings making threatening statements about accelerating foreclosure proceedings. Derek's face flushed. I made no threats. You told Michael that his motorcycle club charity case wouldn't save him. You brought security personnel to intimidate him. You filed false complaints during a natural disaster to harass a struggling veteran. Vic's voice went cold. Would you like me to play the recordings for the sheriff? That's illegal wiretapping. It's legal documentation of conversations on private property where I had permission to record. Big difference. The lawyer whispered urgently to Derek, who looked like he wanted to put his fist through a wall. Sheriff Donovan cleared his throat. Ma'am, do you actually have these recordings? Multiple copies on multiple devices. My tech specialist can provide authentication if needed. Vic gestured to Casey, who held up her laptop and smiled. The sheriff looked at Derek. This true, you brought security up here to pressure Torres. I was conducting legitimate business. During a blizzard. While he was sheltering civilians. The sheriff's voice hardened. That sounds an awful lot like harassment, Derek. I want to file a complaint, Derek said quickly. About illegal occupation and I want to file a complaint. Michael interrupted. About predatory business practices, intimidation, and attempted coercion. Should we all head down to the station and sort this out officially? Derek's lawyer grabbed his arm. My client has nothing further to say at this time. Convenient. Vic smiled without warmth. Sheriff, we're happy to cooperate with any legitimate investigation, but I think you'll find everything here is above board. We'd appreciate it if you'd note that in your report. Sheriff Donovan looked around the room again, at Ruth making coffee at Emma, showing her patch to a deputy who was trying not to smile at 20 women who clearly weren't running an illegal operation. I'll note that I found a group of stranded travelers being cared for during an emergency. No violations observed. No evidence of commercial activity. He looked at Derek. Your complaint appears to be without merit. Sheriff, we're done here. Donovan replaced his hat. Torres, you need anything before we head out? Medical assistance, food supplies? We're okay, Sheriff. Thank you for checking. Just doing my job. Though between you and me, he lowered his voice. You might want to document everything going forward. Everything. Somebody's working awful hard to push you out, and it's not sitting right with me. I appreciate that, Sheriff. Donovan tipped his hat to Vic. Ma'am, your security systems really are top-notch. Department's been happy with them. Glad to hear it, Sheriff. Let me know if you ever need upgrades. The sheriff and his deputies left. Derek and his lawyer remained standing awkwardly near the door. This isn't over, Derek said finally. You keep saying that, Michael replied, but here I am, still standing, still here, with friends who don't scare easy. You think some motorcycle club is going to save you? The bank doesn't care about your sob story. The debt is real. The foreclosure is real. You're going to lose this place, whether you have backup or not. Maybe. But I won't lose it to you. Michael stepped closer. See, I spent 8 years in the Marines learning about honor and sacrifice, and what it means to stand for something. You spent your career learning how to exploit people's suffering for profit. Between the two of us, I like my odds. Derek's smile was vicious. Honor doesn't pay mortgages, Torres. Reality does. And reality is that in 72 hours this property enters foreclosure proceedings. No extension, no delay. Your girlfriend's legal team can file all the paperwork they want. It won't change the math. We'll see about that, Vic said. I've got a few phone calls to make once we're back in signal range. Turns out I know some people at the bank, including the regional director who sits on my corporate board. Small world. The color drained from Derek's face. You're bluffing. Am I want to bet your entire development project on that assumption? Vic tilted her head. Because I'm pretty sure your investors would love to know about your methods. Predatory lending, intimidation, possible corruption. The kind of publicity that kills projects before they break ground. Derek's lawyer pulled him toward the door. We're leaving. Now. They retreated to Derek's truck. Through the window, Michael could see an argument happening. Derek gesturing angrily, the lawyer shaking his head. He's going to come at you harder now, Ruth observed. You backed him into a corner. Good, Vic said. Cornered animals make mistakes. We just need to be ready when he does. Emma tugged on Michael's sleeve. Daddy, did we win? We won this round, baby. But the fight's not over. Are we going to lose our home? Michael knelt down to her level, taking her hands carefully in his bandaged ones. I don't know, Em. I'm going to do everything I can to keep it. But sometimes we fight our hardest and still lose. If that happens, we'll be okay, Emma finished. Because we have each other, and now we have the Iron Sisters too, right? Right. Emma nodded satisfied and went back to showing Ruth's granddaughter skills to one of the younger riders. Vic pulled Michael aside. I meant what I said about the bank director. I can make calls. But you need to be prepared for this to get uglier before it gets better. Derek's desperate and desperate people do desperate things. I know. I've seen it in combat. When the enemy knows they're losing, that's when they're most dangerous. Exactly. So we need to be smart, strategic, and we need to move fast. Vic checked her watch. Roads should be clear enough for travel in a few hours. Most of my people will head out, then back to their chapters, their lives. But I'm staying. Ruth's staying. Casey's staying. A few others who can work remotely. We're not leaving you to face this alone. Vic, you don't have to. Yes, I do, because that's what Iron Sisters means. We don't abandon people mid-fight. She smiled slightly. Besides, I've got vacation days I never use. My board keeps telling me to take time off. Consider this my vacation. Fighting a property developer is your idea of vacation. Better than board meetings and quarterly reports. At least this has clear good guys and bad guys. Casey appeared laptop glowing. Boss, I've got confirmation. The legal team filed preliminary injunctions against foreclosure proceedings. Bank has to respond within 48 hours. We've bought time. How much time? 30 days minimum, maybe more if we can prove predatory practices. It wasn't enough. 30 days to come up with $18,000 plus legal fees, plus whatever Derek threw at them next. But it was something. Thank you, Michael said to Casey, to Vic, to all of them. I don't know how to repay. You already did. Ruth interrupted. You opened your door when we needed shelter. You shared food you couldn't spare. You treated us like human beings instead of problems. She patted his cheek gently. That's worth more than money, dear. The afternoon passed in a flurry of activity. Those leaving packed up, winterized their bikes, checked tire pressure and battery levels. Goodbyes were long and tearful. Women who'd been strangers 4 days ago, now exchanging phone numbers and promises to stay in touch. Jordan knelt in front of Emma. You keep drawing, okay, and send me pictures. I want to see everything you create. I will. And you keep riding even when you fall, right? Right. Because falling is how we learn to fly better next time. One by one, the bikes started up, that familiar rumble that had announced their arrival, now signaling departure. They formed a convoy, a moving chain of chrome and leather, heading down the mountain road that had finally been cleared. Michael stood on the porch with Emma, Vic, Ruth, and Casey watching them go. The roar of engines faded gradually until only silence remained. It's quiet, Emma observed. Too quiet, Casey agreed. I got used to the noise. They returned inside. The inn felt enormous, suddenly echoing with absence. Michael could see ghosts of where people had slept, cooked, laughed. 4 days ago, this place had been empty and dying. Now it felt alive but hollow, like something important had left. Don't look so sad, Ruth said, squeezing his arm. They'll be back, and in the meantime, we've got work to do. What kind of work? The kind that saves your inn. Ruth pulled out a notebook covered in her neat handwriting. I've been making lists. Things we need to do. People we need to contact, strategies we need to implement. You've got 30 days to turn this place around. That's not a lot of time, but it's enough if we're smart about it. Vic pulled out her own phone, now fully charged and showing strong signal. I'm calling the bank director tonight, then my lawyers, then a few journalist friends who owe me favors. We're going to make so much noise about Summit Ridge's practices that they'll have no choice but to back off. And if they don't, then we get louder. Vic's smile was sharp. I didn't build a tech company from nothing by being quiet, Michael. When someone tries to bully me or mine, I bully back harder. It's not pretty, but it's effective. Emma yawned hugely, the adrenaline of the day finally wearing off. Bedtime for you, Michael said. But it's still light out. You've had 4 days of sleeping on floors and staying up late. Real bed, real sleep. That's non-negotiable. For once, Emma didn't argue. She hugged Ruth, then Casey, then Vic, longer than the others, like she was afraid Vic might disappear if she let go. I'll be here in the morning, Vic promised. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Cross my heart. Michael carried Emma to her room, her actual room, that she hadn't slept in since the storm started. He tucked her under Sarah's quilt and sat on the edge of the bed. Daddy. Yeah, baby. I'm scared. The honesty of it broke something in Michael. Emma never admitted fear. She was always so brave, so strong, trying to be easy, because she knew he was struggling. Me too, Em. I'm scared too. But Miss Vic says being scared is okay. She says it just means you care about something. Miss Vic is a smart lady. Are you going to marry her? Michael choked. What, Em? I barely know her. But you like her, I can tell. You smile more when she's around, and she looks at you the way Mommy used to look at you in the old pictures. Baby, it's not that simple. Why not? Mommy wouldn't want you to be alone forever. She told me before she died. She said, Emma, if Daddy finds someone who makes him happy, you be nice to her because Daddy deserves to be happy. Michael's throat closed completely. She said that, uh-huh, when you were getting coffee and we had our special talk. She said lots of things about taking care of you because you're not as strong as you pretend to be. Tears burned behind Michael's eyes. Your mom was too smart for her own good. That's what she said about you too. Emma yawned again. I like Miss Vic, and Miss Ruth, and Miss Casey. I like having lady friends. It's nice. It is nice. So can they stay? Please, I don't want it to be just us again. It's too quiet when it's just us. Michael smoothed her hair back, his heart breaking and healing simultaneously. I'll do my best, baby, I promise. Okay, I believe you. She fell asleep within minutes, exhausted and safe in her own bed. Michael returned to the main room to find Vic, Ruth, and Casey in what looked like a war council papers spread across tables, laptops, glowing phones out. Okay, Vic said when she saw him. Here's where we are. Bank director confirms foreclosure can be delayed, but not canceled without payment. We need $18,000 plus fees, so call it $20,000 to be safe. Legal team can drag things out maybe 60 days total, but that's our absolute maximum. I don't have $20,000, Michael said flatly. I know, but we might be able to get it. Ruth tapped her notebook. Iron Sisters does fundraising all the time. We've got networks across 12 states. If each chapter contributes, if we do some emergency campaigns, if we tap individual members, we could raise significant money. I can't ask for charity. It's not charity, Casey interrupted. It's investment. We're proposing that Mountain Haven Inn becomes an official Iron Sisters waypoint, a place where our members can stop, rest, resupply during long rides. You provide services. We provide steady business. It's mutually beneficial. Plus, Vic added, we structure it properly through my company. Cameron Security partners with Mountain Haven to provide regional operations base. Legitimate business arrangement, clean paperwork, everyone benefits. Michael looked at these three women who'd turned his world upside down in 4 days. Why? Why are you doing all this? Ruth answered. Because 30 years ago when my husband died and left me with 4 kids and no insurance, strangers helped me. People I didn't know paid my rent, brought groceries, watched my children so I could work 3 jobs. I never forgot that. Never stopped looking for ways to pay it forward. Casey shrugged. Because Derek Hastings is exactly the kind of corporate asshole I left Silicon Valley to get away from. Watching you take him down would be enormously satisfying. Vic met his eyes directly. Because my father taught me that service doesn't end when you leave the military. It just changes form. You served your country for 8 years. Now let us serve you. That's how this works. Michael felt something fundamental shift in his chest. All his life, he'd been the one helping others. The Marine holding the line. The husband supporting his sick wife. The father protecting his daughter. He'd forgotten how to accept help, how to trust others to carry weight he'd been shouldering alone. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, let's do this. Vic's smile could have lit the room. Good. Because I already started making calls. We've got a plan, Michael, and it's going to work. How can you be so sure? Because I've never lost a fight I cared about winning, and I care about this one. The way she said it made Michael wonder if she meant the inn or something more personal. But before he could ask, his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. Hello? Mr. Torres. This is Amanda Chen from Channel 7 News. I'm calling about allegations of predatory lending practices by Summit Ridge Corporation. I understand you're one of the affected property owners. Would you be willing to speak on camera? Michael looked at Vic, who was already nodding. Yes, he said. Yes, I would. Excellent. How's tomorrow morning? I can bring a crew up to your location. Tomorrow's fine. He ended the call and stared at his phone. How did a news station already know about this? Casey raised her hand. I may have made some calls to journalist friends and posted on some advocacy forums. and reached out to veterans' rights organizations. Your story went viral in certain circles pretty fast. Viral. Marine veteran and widower facing illegal foreclosure while caring for young daughter. That's catnip for social justice advocates and news outlets. You're going to get more calls. Sure enough, the phone rang again, then again. By the time the evening ended, Michael had agreed to 3 news interviews, 2 podcast appearances, and a feature article in a veterans magazine. Is this really necessary? He asked after the 7th call. Absolutely, Vic said. Public pressure is the best weapon against people like Derek. He can't operate in shadows once we shine light on what he's doing. And the more people know your story, the more support we'll get, financial and otherwise. Ruth made dinner from food they'd restocked once the roads cleared, actual fresh food that tasted like heaven after 4 days of rations. They ate together, the 4 of them, planning strategy and building momentum. This feels surreal, Michael admitted. 4 days ago, I was alone and hopeless. Now I've got a CEO, a tech genius, and a retired principal running a military campaign out of my bar. Welcome to Iron Sisters Operations, Casey said cheerfully. We work fast, and we work thorough. Derek Hastings won't know what hit him. That night, lying in his actual bed for the first time in days, Michael stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything. His life had been transformed in less than a week. His empty inn had been filled with fierce women who'd decided he was worth saving. His daughter was smiling again, and Vic was staying. She didn't have to. She'd done enough already. But she was staying anyway, parking her expensive life and corporate responsibilities to help a stranger fight his battle. Because my father taught me that service doesn't end when you leave the military. Michael understood that better than she knew. Service was the only thing that had kept him alive after Sarah died. The mission of raising Emma, of honoring his wife's memory, of building something permanent. Now the mission had expanded to include accepting help, trusting others, believing that maybe he didn't have to fight alone. It terrified him. But Emma's words echoed in his mind. Miss Vic makes you smile more, did she? Michael hadn't even noticed, but now that Emma had said it, he couldn't unsee it. The way his chest loosened when Vic walked into a room, the way her sharp confidence made him feel steadier, the way she called him on his bullshit without judgment, just clarity. Don't look so sad, they'll be back. Would they? Or would this whole thing fall apart once the adrenaline faded and reality set in? Michael didn't know. But for the first time in 3 years, he was willing to find out. Tomorrow would bring news cameras and more of Derek's schemes and the ongoing battle for his home. But tonight, Mountain Haven Inn felt alive again. Not with ghosts of what he'd lost, but with possibilities of what might be built. He fell asleep thinking about butterflies and motorcycles, and his daughter's honorary patch about Emma's belief that Sarah had sent guardian angels in leather jackets. Maybe she had. Or maybe the universe just worked in mysterious ways. Either way, Michael Torres was done fighting alone. The real battle was just beginning. The news van arrived at 8 the next morning, right on schedule. Michael watched through the window as Amanda Chen and her crew unloaded equipment, his stomach churning with anxiety he hadn't felt since combat briefings. You're going to be fine, Vic said, appearing beside him with coffee. Just tell the truth. That's all you need to do. I'm not good at this kind of thing. Talking to cameras, sharing personal stuff with strangers. You're a Marine. You've faced worse than a news interview. Different kind of scary. Vic smiled. Want me there with you? Michael surprised himself by saying yes immediately. Amanda Chen turned out to be younger than her voice suggested, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes that reminded Michael of Vic's assessing gaze. She shook his hand firmly. Mr. Torres, thank you for agreeing to speak with us. I know this isn't easy. Call me Michael. And yeah, it's not. But if it helps stop what's happening to other people, it's worth it. That's exactly the angle we're taking. You're not the first person Summit Ridge has targeted, and without intervention, you won't be the last. Amanda gestured to her cameraman. We'll do this in 2 parts. First, a sit-down interview with you. Then some B-roll of the property, maybe a few shots of your daughter if you're comfortable with that. Emma stays out of it, Michael said firmly. She's been through enough without being on TV. Understood. We can work around that. They set up in the main room. Michael sat in a chair that suddenly felt like an interrogation seat, painfully aware of the camera's red light. Amanda started gently. Michael, tell us about Mountain Haven Inn. How long have you owned it? 8 years. My wife Sarah and I bought it after I left the Marines. We wanted to build something permanent, something that would last. His voice caught. She died 3 years ago, cancer. I'm so sorry. That must have been devastating. It was, still is. But we have a daughter, Emma. She's 8. Sarah made me promise to keep the inn going to give Emma the stable home I'd never had growing up. And you've been running it alone since your wife passed. Trying to. It's been hard. Medical bills from Sarah's treatment wiped out our savings. Then last winter's storm damaged the roof. Insurance wouldn't cover all of it. I fell behind on payments. Amanda leaned forward. When did Summit Ridge Corporation first contact you? About a year ago. Guy named Derek Hastings. Started friendly, said he wanted to help, offered to buy the property. When I refused, the offers got lower. The pressure got higher. What kind of pressure? Michael took a breath. Banks suddenly calling in loans they'd restructured just months before. Code violations I'd never heard about appearing in my file. Property taxes mysteriously doubling. And Derek kept calling, kept showing up, kept telling me I should sell before things got worse. Did things get worse? They did. 3 weeks ago I got a foreclosure notice. $18,000 due in 10 days or I lose everything. That's when the Iron Sisters arrived. Michael glanced at Vic, who nodded encouragement. Yeah, 20 women on motorcycles showed up during a blizzard asking for shelter. I let them in, didn't know who they were or that they'd end up saving my life. How did they save your life? By showing me I didn't have to fight alone. By standing up to Derek when he came back with threats and intimidation. By digging into Summit Ridge's history and finding out I wasn't the only one they'd targeted. Michael's voice hardened. They've done this to at least 15 other property owners. Driven them into foreclosure, bought their land cheap, and blocked anyone else from helping. That's a serious accusation. It's documented. We have emails, financial records, witness testimony. Summit Ridge isn't just doing business. They're systematically destroying people's lives for profit. Amanda's eyes gleamed. This was the story she'd hoped for. What do you want people to know, Michael? That veterans come home and try to build lives after service. We do everything right, work hard, pay our bills, take care of our families. But when tragedy hits, when medical bills pile up, when we stumble, there are people like Derek Hastings waiting to kick us while we're down. That's not business. That's predatory. And it needs to stop. What happens if you can't stop the foreclosure? Michael looked directly at the camera. Then Emma and I lose our home. The last thing I promised my wife. And Summit Ridge gets exactly what they wanted, my land for pennies on the dollar, so they can build their resort and make millions. Is that acceptable to you? Hell no. But I'm one man with limited resources fighting a corporation with lawyers and connections. The only reason I have a chance is because the Iron Sisters decided I was worth fighting for. Because strangers became family. Because sometimes the people you shelter end up being the ones who save you. Amanda smiled. That's beautiful, Michael. Can we talk about the Iron Sisters? Who are they exactly? Vic stepped into frame. I can answer that. I'm Victoria Cameron, founder and CEO of Iron Sisters Motorcycle Club. Amanda's eyebrows rose. You're also CEO of Cameron Security Systems. I am. Iron Sisters started 8 years ago as a way to honor my father who died serving in the Marines. We're a non-profit organization that provides support, transportation, and advocacy for women in crisis and veterans in need. We have 300 members across 12 states. And you were here by coincidence. We were caught in the storm, and Michael provided shelter without hesitation. When we learned about his situation, we decided to help. That's what we do. How are you helping? Legally, financially, and publicly. We've filed injunctions against the foreclosure. We're raising funds through our network. We're investigating Summit Ridge's practices and reporting findings to state authorities. And we're making sure Michael's story gets told so people understand what's at stake. What's at stake? Vic's voice went cold. Whether corporations can destroy individuals with impunity or whether communities will stand up and say no. Whether profit matters more than people. Whether we let men like Derek Hastings win because fighting back is hard. She looked directly at the camera. I vote for fighting back. Amanda practically glowed. This is powerful stuff. Michael, Victoria, thank you both. This is going to make a strong piece. After they finished, Casey appeared with her laptop. Boss, you need to see this. The story's already breaking online. Someone leaked our documentation to a legal blog that specializes in corporate malfeasance. Summit Ridge is getting crucified in the comments. She turned the screen to show hundreds of comments, shares, retweets. The story was spreading faster than any of them had anticipated. Is this going to help or hurt us? Michael asked. Help, Vic said confidently. Public pressure works. Trust me. The phone started ringing. Ruth answered, listened, and her eyes went wide. Michael, it's the bank director. He wants to speak with you personally. Michael took the phone with shaking hands. This is Michael Torres. Mr. Torres, this is James Morrison, Regional Director for Mountain West Bank. I'm calling to discuss your account status. Okay. I've been reviewing your file and the circumstances around your foreclosure proceedings. I'm also aware of recent allegations regarding Summit Ridge Corporation's involvement with our lending practices. Michael's heart hammered. And I want to be very clear that Mountain West Bank does not engage in predatory lending. If any of our employees have acted improperly, that will be addressed. In the meantime, I'm placing a 90-day hold on your foreclosure while we conduct an internal review. 90 days. Yes. And I'm also approving a temporary restructuring of your loan terms to make monthly payments more manageable. You'll receive documentation within 48 hours. Michael couldn't speak. Vic grabbed the phone. Mr. Morrison, this is Victoria Cameron. We appreciate the bank's cooperation. Should we expect this restructuring to be permanent? Pending Mr. Torres's compliance with modified terms, yes. We have no interest in foreclosing on a property owner who's attempting to meet obligations in good faith. Thank you. We'll be watching to ensure these promises are kept. I would expect nothing less, Ms. Cameron. Your reputation precedes you. Vic handed the phone back to Michael, who managed to croak out a thank you before Morrison ended the call. Did that just happen? Michael asked. That just happened. Casey confirmed, checking her laptop. Public pressure plus legal pressure plus embarrassment factor equals bank backing down. Classic corporate damage control. Emma burst into the room, still in her pajamas. Daddy, Miss Ruth says the bank called and we get to keep our house. Michael caught his daughter as she launched herself at him. We get to keep it for now, baby. We still have to make payments, still have to work hard. But we're not losing it today. No, not today. Emma threw her arms around his neck. I told you Miss Vic was a superhero. Over Emma's head, Michael met Vic's eyes. Thank you, he mouthed. She smiled and looked away, but not before he caught something in her expression. Relief, satisfaction, and something that might have been affection. The rest of the day passed in a blur. More phone calls, more interviews, more documentation. Summit Ridge Corporation issued a statement denying all allegations of wrongdoing, which only made people angrier. Derek Hastings' name started trending on social media, and not in a good way. By evening, Casey had tracked down 3 other property owners who'd been targeted by Summit Ridge. All 3 agreed to come forward with their stories. This is bigger than we thought, Casey said. Summit Ridge has been running this scam for at least 5 years. We're talking dozens of victims, millions in assets acquired through questionable means. Can we prove it? Vic asked. With time and resources? Yeah. The Attorney General's office is interested. So is the FBI's white-collar crime division. Michael felt dizzy. The FBI. Financial fraud across state lines is federal jurisdiction. If Summit Ridge used the same tactics in multiple states, and they did, that's a big deal. Ruth appeared with dinner, actual home-cooked food that smelled like heaven. Everyone eats. You can save the world after you've had pot roast. Nobody argued with Ruth. They ate together, the five of them crowded around the table that had seen so many empty meals. Emma chattered about her day, about the drawings she'd made of everyone, about how Miss Casey let her type on the real computer. She's got good instincts, Casey said. Asked smart questions about how the laptop works. You've got a future engineer on your hands. Sarah was good with computers, Michael said. Emma must get it from her. What was your wife like? Vic asked quietly. Michael hesitated. He didn't talk about Sarah often. It hurt too much. But something about Vic's gentle question made him want to answer. She was light. That's the best way I can describe her. When everything felt dark and heavy, Sarah was light. She laughed at terrible jokes. She danced in the kitchen. She saw the best in everyone, even when they didn't deserve it. His voice roughened. She would have loved you all, would have been in the thick of this fight, organizing and planning and making everyone feel like family. She sounds wonderful, Ruth said softly. She was the best person I've ever known, and I failed her. Michael, Vic started. I couldn't save her. Couldn't keep my promise to build something permanent. Couldn't even keep her memory alive without almost losing everything we'd built together. Daddy, that's not true. Emma said, her voice small. Mommy's memory is alive. I remember her every day. And you didn't fail her, you just got tired. There's a difference. The wisdom from his 8-year-old daughter stopped everyone. When did you get so smart? Michael asked, his eyes burning. Mommy taught me. She said being tired isn't the same as being weak. She said sometimes people just need help carrying heavy things, and that's okay. Vic cleared her throat, looking suspiciously emotional. Your mom was right, Emma. Very right. After dinner, Emma went to bed without argument, exhausted from the day's excitement. Michael tucked her in, smoothing her hair back the way Sarah used to. Daddy. Yeah, baby. Are you happy now? Like really happy? The question caught him off guard. What do you mean? You're smiling more, laughing more. You seem less sad. Emma's eyes were serious. I want you to be happy. Mommy would want that too. I'm getting there, Em. It takes time. Do you think Miss Vic makes you happy? Michael's heart skipped. Why do you keep asking about Miss Vic? Because you look at her the way you used to look at Mommy in the old pictures. Like she's special. Like she matters. Em. It's okay if she matters, Daddy. I like her, and I think Mommy would like her too, because Miss Vic is fierce and brave and she takes care of people. Just like Mommy did. Michael didn't know what to say. Emma had somehow seen what he'd been trying not to acknowledge, that Vic had become important to him. That somewhere between the storm and the fight, and the terrifying vulnerability of accepting help, he'd started caring about her in ways that had nothing to do with gratitude. Get some sleep, baby. We'll talk about this when you're older. I'm already old enough to see what's right in front of my face. That's what Mommy used to say when you were being stubborn about something obvious. Michael kissed her forehead. You're too much like your mother for my own good. Good. Because Mommy was the smartest person in the whole world. He left her smiling, secure in the knowledge that her father was finally finding his way back to something resembling happiness. Downstairs, Vic sat alone by the window, staring out at the dark mountain. Emma asleep? She asked without turning. Yeah, she's exhausted. Michael joined her 2 cups of whiskey in hand. He offered her one. Thought you might need this after today. I don't usually drink on campaign. Is that what this is, a campaign? Vic took the whiskey and sipped. Feels like one. Strategy, tactics, enemy positions, resource management. All the fun of war without the bullets. I prefer it without bullets. Me too. Vic turned to face him. We're going to win this, Michael. The bank backing down was just the first domino. Derek's scrambling, now making mistakes. We keep the pressure on, he'll collapse completely. And then what? Then you rebuild. Make this place what you and Sarah dreamed it would be. Maybe partner with Iron Sisters for steady income. Maybe expand into other services. The possibilities are endless, once you're not drowning. I meant what happens with you. When this is over and you've saved the day, do you go back to your corner office in Seattle? Back to your real life? Vic's expression shifted, something vulnerable breaking through her usual confidence. What if I don't want to? Michael's breath caught. Don't want to what? Go back, resume real life, pretend the last week didn't change everything. Vic set down her whiskey. I've been running Cameron Security for 12 years. Built it from nothing sold. It bought it back, ran it better. Made more money than I'll ever spend. Sat on boards, gave speeches, did all the things successful people are supposed to do, and I was miserable. Vic, let me finish. I was miserable until I started Iron Sisters. Until I found purpose beyond profit. Until I met women who needed help and let myself be the one to help them. That's when I remembered what my father taught me, that service is the only thing that makes life worth living. She met his eyes directly. And then I met you. A Marine widow struggling alone, trying to honor his wife's memory while raising a daughter who's too smart for her own good. And something clicked, like the universe was saying, this is where you're supposed to be. Michael's heart hammered. Vic, I can't ask you to give up your life. You're not asking. I'm choosing. Cameron Security has excellent executives who can handle day-to-day operations. I can run things remotely, travel when necessary. But I want a base here. Want to help you build this place into something that matters. Want to be part of Emma's life. Want to... She paused. Want to see where this goes. Between us. The words hung in the air, terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. I'm a mess, Michael said. Still grieving my wife. Broke. Barely holding it together most days. I'm not a good bet. I don't want a bet. I want a partner. Someone who understands that life is hard and scary and beautiful all at once. Someone who fights for what matters even when the odds suck. Someone who... Vic's voice softened. Someone who makes me believe in possibility again. You're serious. Completely. But if you're not ready, if this is too fast or too complicated or too anything, I'll back off. We can keep things professional. I'll still help with the ends, still be Emma's friend. But I needed you to know how I feel. Michael looked at this fierce, complicated woman who'd crashed into his life like a storm and turned everything upside down. Part of him wanted to retreat to protect himself from the possibility of more loss. But a bigger part, the part that Emma had somehow seen before he did, wanted to step forward into the terrifying unknown. Sarah told Emma before she died that if I found someone who made me happy, Emma should be nice to her because I deserved happiness. Michael's voice broke. I didn't think I'd ever find that again. Didn't think I wanted to. And now I'm scared as hell. But I'm also... He searched for words. I'm also more alive than I've been in 3 years. You make me want to fight instead of just survive. Make me believe we can win instead of just holding the line until we lose. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. A scared, complicated, let's take this slow maybe. But yeah, it's a maybe. Vic's smile could have lit the whole mountain. I can work with maybe. She leaned in slowly, giving him time to retreat. He didn't. Their kiss was gentle, tentative tasting of whiskey and hope, and the terrifying possibility of something new. When they pulled apart, Michael was shaking. Too fast? Vic asked. No, just right, and absolutely terrifying. Welcome to my world. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching snow begin to fall again. Just a light dusting this time, nothing like the storm that had brought them together. What do we tell Emma? Michael asked. The truth. That we care about each other and we're figuring it out as we go. Kids are resilient. She'll be fine. She already asked me if I was going to marry you. Vic laughed, surprised and delighted. What did you say? That it was too soon to talk about that. Very diplomatic. I'm a father. Diplomacy is survival. They sat until late talking about everything and nothing. About Vic's father and Sarah. About Emma's future and Iron Sister's mission. About the inn and how to transform it into something sustainable. We could do retreats, Vic suggested. Veteran support groups' women's recovery programs. Iron Sisters chapters could use it as a base for regional rides. You've got the space and the location, we just need to market it properly. I don't know anything about marketing. Lucky for you, I do. And Casey's a wizard with social media. Between the three of us, we'll make this place famous for the right reasons. Famous sounds exhausting. Fame is exhausting. Purpose is energizing. There's a difference. Michael thought about this. About transforming Mountain Haven from his lonely outpost into a genuine community hub. About honoring Sarah's memory by building something bigger than they'd originally dreamed. Okay, he said. Let's do it. All of it. The partnership, the transformation, the scary personal stuff. Let's do it. You're sure? No, but I'm done waiting to be sure. Life's too short and too fragile. Sarah taught me that. Time to start living like I believe it. Vic kissed him again, longer this time, and Michael let himself feel it. The warmth, the connection, the possibility that maybe he could have happiness again without betraying the love he'd lost. When morning came, they found Emma already awake and sitting with Ruth, both of them grinning like they knew a secret. What? Michael asked suspiciously. Nothing, Emma said innocently. Just that you and Miss Vic were talking really late last night. We were discussing business. Uh-huh. That's what you said when you and Mommy were discussing business, and then you got married. Emma's smile was pure mischief. I'm not a baby daddy. I can tell when grown-ups like each other. Ruth patted Emma's hand. Let's give your father some coffee before we interrogate him about his personal life. I don't need interrogating, Michael started. Too late, Vic said, appearing in her Iron Sister's vest and looking completely comfortable in his kitchen. Emma, your father and I are figuring out if we want to date. Like actual dating. Is that okay with you? Emma launched herself at Vic, hugging her with the full force of 8-year-old enthusiasm. Yes, 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 yes. Can I be a flower girl if you get married? I've always wanted to be a flower girl. Emma. Michael's face burned. We literally just decided to maybe date. Nobody's getting married. Yet, Emma added helpfully. Vic laughed, holding Emma close. How about we start with friendship and see where it goes? No pressure, no expectations. Just us figuring it out together. Can I still call you Miss Vic, or do I have to call you something else now? Miss Vic is perfect, or just Vic if you want. I'll stick with Miss Vic. It's fancy. Emma pulled back, her face serious. You have to promise me something, though. What's that? Promise you'll take care of my daddy. He's really bad at taking care of himself. He forgets to eat, and he stays up too late worrying, and sometimes he cries when he thinks I can't hear. Vic knelt to Emma's level. I promise I'll do my best to take care of him. But you know what, he needs to learn to take care of himself, too. That's part of being a grown-up. Then you have to teach him, because Mommy tried, and he never learned. Deal. They shook on it solemnly, and Michael felt his heart crack open in ways that terrified and healed him simultaneously. The next weeks passed in a blur of activity. News coverage of Summit Ridge's practices exploded. 3 more property owners came forward with complaints. The Attorney General's office opened an official investigation. Derek Hastings hired a crisis management team and went silent publicly. The bank restructured Michael's loan with terms he could actually manage. Iron Sisters chapters across the country donated to a fund that cleared his remaining debt completely. In 1 month, Michael went from facing foreclosure to owning his property free and clear with money left over for renovations. This doesn't feel real, Michael said, staring at the paid-in-full notice. It's real, Casey confirmed. Iron Sisters raised $43,000. Members, corporate sponsors, individual donors. People wanted to help. I'll never be able to repay everyone. You're not supposed to repay them. You're supposed to pay it forward. That's how this works. Mountain Haven Inn reopened officially 2 months after the storm rebranded as Mountain Haven Retreat. The grand reopening featured 20 Iron Sisters chapters arriving on motorcycles, veterans groups, local media, and Emma cutting the ribbon with a pair of oversized scissors that made her giggle. "We did it," Michael said, watching people fill his inn with life and laughter. "No," Vic corrected, taking his hand. "We did it. Together." Emma appeared between them, worming her way into their joined hands. "This is the best day ever. Even better than my birthday." "Why's that?" Michael asked. "Because our family got bigger. We got Miss Vic and Miss Ruth and Miss Casey and all the motorcycle ladies. And Daddy's not sad anymore. And Mommy would be so happy that we're happy." Michael looked down at his daughter, then at Vic, then at the inn full of people who'd become family. Emma was right. Sarah would be happy. Would want this. Would want him to live instead of just survive. "Yeah," he said, his voice thick. "Mommy would be really happy." They stood together, the three of them, watching the celebration and feeling the weight of the past slowly transform into hope for the future. The storm that had threatened to destroy everything had instead brought salvation in the form of 20 women on motorcycles. Derek Hastings faced federal charges, and his development company collapsed under scrutiny. The bank implemented new oversight procedures to prevent predatory lending. And Michael Torres learned that sometimes the bravest thing a Marine could do was lower his guard and let people in. 3 years later, on a perfect spring morning, Emma did get to be a flower girl. She wore a yellow dress the color of hope and carried butterflies made of paper that Ruth had taught her to fold. Iron Sisters lined the aisle on their motorcycles' engines, rumbling in approval as Vic walked toward Michael in a simple white dress that made her look like light itself. "You sure about this?" Michael whispered as they joined hands. "I've never been more sure of anything," Vic replied. Emma stood between them, holding both their hands, the physical representation of past and future meeting in the present. "Mommy sent you," Emma whispered to Vic. "I just know it." Vic's eyes filled with tears. "Then I'm honored to be here." They became a family that day, officially and forever. The inn thrived as a retreat center. Emma grew up surrounded by fierce women who taught her to be strong and kind in equal measure. And Michael learned that grief and joy could coexist, that new love didn't erase old love, but added to it. Sometimes late at night, when the inn was quiet and Emma was asleep and Vic was working on her laptop, Michael would stand at the window and remember that desperate moment when he'd heard motorcycles in a blizzard and made the choice to open his door. That single decision had changed everything. Because sometimes the people you shelter end up being the ones who save you. And sometimes warriors find peace not by fighting alone, but by learning when to trust their squad. Michael Torres had finally come home. Not to a place, but to a family. Not to the past, but to a future worth building. And somewhere he liked to think Sarah was smiling. Proud of the man he'd become. Happy that Emma had found joy again. Grateful that he'd honored their promise while also finding new promises worth keeping. The storm had passed, the battle had been won, and life, complicated and beautiful and terrifying as it was, continued. With love, with community, with hope, always with hope.